Concerned that the public was being lied to, he began photocopying the report.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 government leaks.
Mr. Snowden was able to capture the password, allowing him even greater access to classified information.
The new leak contains several millions of documents. It's emails, PDFs, Word documents.
The United States strongly condemns the illegal disclosure of classified information.
For this list, we'll be looking at the most infamous, impactful times information was leaked about government officials or programs. What information would you like to see leaked? Sound off in the comments. Number 10. Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Government leaks aren't a recent thing. People have been snitching for the longest time. Towards the end of the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 48, the country's officials secretly met to negotiate peace. However, that peace treaty didn't stay secret for very long. John Nugent, a reporter for the New York Herald, leaked the drafted document to the public, sending shockwaves throughout the U.S.
And in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, it ceded a third of its territory to the U.S.
Nugent was detained and interrogated, but never revealed his source. There were several amendments being suggested to the document before this leak, but the sudden press caused the House to quickly ratify it.
The United States takes the half of Mexico that is the least populated.
Number 9. Swiss leaks. If we have to pay taxes, so should everyone else. That's what makes this revelation so frustrating. In 2015, French computer analyst Hervé Falciani leaked info from the Swiss subsidiary of British multinational bank HSBC, revealing a massive tax evasion scheme.
He was arrested in France and faced a possible extradition.
It implicated thousands of clients, including prominent figures and organizations from multiple countries who were hoarding billions of dollars in offshore tax haven.
HSBC didn't just help its clients with traditional tax dodging. Its bankers also allegedly helped launder money.
The bank reportedly tried to suppress the story in the media with some success. Citizens from the UK, US, Switzerland, Venezuela, and France were among the biggest perpetrators. HSBC was taken to trial in France, but agreed to pay a few $100 million, and the case was dropped.
Most of what's happening offshore is perfectly legal, and it is, but it's the secrecy that allows some of it to be illegal and some of it to be wrong.
Number 8. Guantanamo Bay Files. In 2011, WikiLeaks and several news outlets began publishing secret documents about detainees in Guantanamo Bay. They revealed that the U.S. held 150 innocent men for years without charges.
That around 150 innocent Afghans and Pakistanis were locked up, including farmers, chefs, and drivers.
One detainee was a journalist and cameraman for Al Jazeera, who was locked up for 6 years before his release. Many prisoners were subject to brutal abuse and suffered from depression and other mental illnesses.
For the next 70 days, I wouldn't know the sweetness of sleeping. Interrogation 24 hours a day. I was living literally in terror.
Out of 780 detainees, only 220 were considered to be dangerous extremists. 380 were low-ranking guerrillas. Commentators noted that media outlets reacted very differently, with US outlets like CNN tending to downplay the negative revelations.
I think it shows that the original sin was setting it up in the first place.
Number 7. Operation Mincemeat. This was the one time on this list where governments wanted information leaked. During World War II, the Allies wanted to mislead their enemies about the upcoming 1943 invasion of Sicily.
The island was the obvious target, and the Germans knew it.
So the British concocted a plan. British intelligence obtained the body of a homeless man who died of rat poison, dressed him as an officer, and planted a fake correspondence suggesting the Allies intended to invade Greece and Sardinia instead of Sicily.
The body could be made to look as if it had died at sea after an air crash.
They left the body in the ocean off the coast of Spain. The Axis powers fell for it and moved reinforcements to Greece and Sardinia, allowing the Allies to liberate Sicily.
9 days after the body was fished out of the water, the fake letter landed in the lap of the Germans.
Number 6. Pentagon Papers. From 1945 to 1967, the U.S. was engaged in the controversial Vietnam War. Public opinion only got worse when Daniel Ellsberg released the Pentagon Papers.
The Pentagon Papers were not a good look for the United States government.
Not only did it disclose the U.S.'s involvement in secret operations in the region, including the rise and overthrow of South Vietnam President Ngo Dinh Diem, but it also exposed the intention of the war. It wasn't to help a friend by creating an independent South Vietnam, but to contain China.
The central fact so far revealed is that there was a massive deception of the American public for starting the bombing of North Vietnam.
This led the New York Times to accuse President Johnson of having lied to the public and Congress. While Ellsberg was charged, the charges were dropped after it was discovered the Nixon administration commissioned illegal actions to discredit him.
It didn't work. Ellsberg was free, and together with the New York Times, set a new precedent for the press.
Number 5. The Tiananmen Papers. Back in 1983, Chinese students came together to protest, calling for greater accountability, freedom of speech and of the press, and democratic reforms. At one point, over 1 million people assembled in Beijing's Tiananmen Square.
They turned Tiananmen Square, the country's symbol of sovereignty, into a hub of dissent and protest.
The government sent in hundreds of thousands of troops who fired on protesters, killing somewhere between several hundred to several thousand.
What the public doesn't know is that hundreds of thousands of soldiers are assembled on the outskirts of Beijing.
In 2001, a book of compiled alleged documents from Chinese officials was published, purporting to reveal the divisions within the Chinese Communist Party at the time. However, there is also considerable debate over the authenticity of the documents. The Chinese government's solution has been to ban the book outright. Number 4. Global surveillance disclosures. It's hard to dismiss paranoia when it turns out your own country is spying on you. In 2013, NSA contractor Edward Snowden released highly classified information to several media outlets.
Today, he came out as the leaker of classified NSA documents that spell out a secret surveillance program.
The documents revealed a global surveillance program led by the U.S. and its allies, dedicated to mass collecting emails, text messages, phone calls, and more. The data is obtained through commercial partners, the infiltration of computer networks, and even by just sucking it right out of the undersea fiber optic cables.
Leak of the program's existence may make terrorists stop communicating in these basic ways.
In the U.S., the revelation that the NSA was spying on ordinary American citizens shocks the public. Ever wonder if someone is sitting in a cubicle looking at your private messages and pictures? Well, it's not impossible.
Well, the good news is there's no program named the Dick Pic program.
Number 3. Panama Papers. These offshore banks must be raking in a fortune doing people's shady finances.
Panama Papers this weekend has exposed a worldwide corruption scandal.
In 2016, 11.5 million documents were leaked from Panamanian law firm and corporate service provider Mossack Fonseca by an unknown whistleblower. They revealed how Mossack Fonseca had set up thousands of shell companies that allowed wealthy people around the world to commit fraud and evade taxes and international sanctions.
And it all centers on a secretive law firm in Panama that for decades has allegedly helped the world's rich and powerful.
Many high-ranking officials were implicated, including British Prime Minister David Cameron and Icelandic Prime Minister Sigmundur David Gunnlaugsson, who subsequently resigned. The following year, the water got even hotter for people and corporations taking advantage of tax havens with the leak of 13.4 million more documents, dubbed the Paradise Papers.
From outside, Mossack Fonseca looks like a perfectly respectable company. But this is a business that's helped people from around the world break the law.
Number 2. Cablegate. If spying on their own citizens wasn't enough, turns out the U.S. was spying on United Nations leaders as well.
I think this is a very damaging leak. I think it breaks the trust and confidence that we need to have.
In November 2010, WikiLeaks released hundreds of thousands of classified diplomatic messages into the public domain. They'd been obtained from soldier and whistleblower Chelsea Manning. The cables showed the US and Britain gathering intel and eavesdropping on Secretary General Kofi Annan and others. Several unflattering private discussions and appraisals were revealed too.
Latest leak includes confidential views about major allies and partners.
The leak also highlighted corruption in Tunisia and may have provided one of the many sparks that led to the Tunisian Revolution and the Arab Spring.
But I can say that the United States deeply regrets the disclosure of any information that was intended to be confidential.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Iraq War Documents. In July 2010, WikiLeaks published the Afghan War Documents, which detailed atrocities and failures from the war in Afghanistan.
And while there was nothing they could do to stop the release or the subsequent media reports, they still called the release a dangerous thing.
A few months later, an even bigger leak of documents was released about the Iraq War. Both came from Manning.
The WikiLeaks website released nearly 400,000 secret U.S. files on the Iraq War late today. It was the largest leak of classified U.S. files in history.
The Iraq War documents revealed human rights abuses, support for insurgent forces, and data that increased the Iraq body count's projected death toll to 150,000, 80% of them civilians.
Leaked Pentagon files obtained by The Guardian contain details for the first time of more than 100,000 people killed in Iraq following the US-led invasion.
They also included footage of a U.S. helicopter crew celebrating as they gunned down men, some of whom were armed, but who turned out to be civilians, including 2 journalists. The crew then fired on a van and building, leading to more civilian casualties. It was the biggest leak in U.S. military history and sent shockwaves throughout the world.
All victims of war, including civilians, deserve that same level of respectful acknowledgement.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.